Is there a difference between exercise and training? You bet. Activity for the sake of itself, like exercise, is great, but if you're looking to get results, you better understand what proper training consists of. Successful programming ensures steady progression as well as successful goal acquisition. Whether you're trying to go for fat loss, increase your strength, have a better marathon time, and it also helps with reducing the likelihood of injuries. Nobody wants that. Most people respond to the SAID principle, specific adaptation to imposed demands. Proper programming allows the body to adapt by progressively increasing the load, whether it's more weight on the barbell, longer runs, or faster runs. Proper programming allows us to create a plan. And when we create a plan, we're much more likely to stick to it and obviously reduce the likelihood of injury. We know what's coming up and we can plan for it accordingly. Whereas exercising usually requires a shorter term goal, training is more long term. So we usually plan for phases that can last weeks, months, and even the year. Each phase of training challenges the body in a different way, whether it's more weight on the barbell done for more reps, whether it's improving the cardiovascular system by going on longer runs, or general fitness by training more often. Each phase will have a specific demand that will be imposed on the body. Each phase of training will require the programmer to manipulate different training variables, whether it's the number of sets, the number of reps, or length of time you train. These variables will help adapt or allow the body to adapt to the stress that is imposed on it. And by manipulating those, the program becomes more successful, depending on what your activity is. Tudor Bompa, the father of periodization, talks about the different phases of training. And they all begin with anatomical adaptation. That's usually a phase that we take where we prepare the body for the work that's going to come. We prepare the ligaments, the tendons, the muscles, the heart for the work that we're going to impose on it. The next phase that people usually focus on is hypertrophy, or building muscle. And that phase is highlighted by higher volume of training. So if we're talking about resistance training, think of it as more sets, more reps, more exercises. What that ends up doing is allowing your body to tolerate more lactic acid buildup. It allows you to do more work and grows muscle. Depending on what activity you're involved in, what sport you play, or what your goals are, the phases can change. You can have a power phase, you can have a strength phase, you can have a mix of both, such as a strength power phase, maybe an endurance power phase, and that all depends on the kind of sport that you play. A power phase is usually highlighted by more explosive movements, faster movements. The weight is usually kept lower so that we can work on the movement being faster. A strength phase is usually highlighted by heavier weights or more intense weights. So think of it as doing less reps, more sets, but less volume. So higher intensity, lower volume for strength phases. Finally, it's important to allow the body and the nervous system to recover from the different training phases and the different stress that we impose on them. And that is why it's very important to program deload weeks into whatever plan we're following. Deload weeks allow the body to recover from very strenuous phases. At the beginning of every phase, you will go through what's called a shock period. During that time, you may actually notice your performance dip. That's totally fine. That's your body's response to a new stimulus. But proper programming and following the plan will then generate what's called a supercompensation period. And that is, after a certain phase, you will actually start seeing an improvement in your performance. So as you can see, there's a lot involved with proper programming and proper training. It is complicated, but it is fun, and that's why we're around to help.